All right, guys. Today we're going to cover bench press technique. I'm Coach Matt. This is Coach Dane. We're going to be going over techniques that we've found to be effective and just tips and cues that you can use to improve your bench press.
Definitely. Where do we want to start?
Cool. I'll kind of go over it first. So one of the biggest things that I see with people who are new to bench pressing is they have the inability or don't really understand the concept of pinning the shoulder blades back and down. If I'm bench pressing here, when I have my shoulders back and down, that's a lot shorter of a distance than it is when my shoulders are loose or in a protracted state. I have to look how much more range of motion I have to go from here than if I have my shoulders back and down. Also, by putting your shoulders back and down, it puts the shoulders into a looser position and a safer position for them. So just by doing that, again, this is going to help you increase your bench press, but also keep your shoulders healthy while you're doing it. So I'm going to go over that whole concept first, and then we'll go to the next tip or cue. So how I do that, whenever I get on the rack or into the bench, I actually do use the rack to help me pin my shoulder blades down and back. So when I get set for my bench, I'm going to use the rack. I'm going to grab onto the rack and almost shimmy my shoulder blades back together to try to get them as close as I possibly can together, back and down, before I even grab the bar and take it out of the rack. It's a lot harder for me. So here, good. Now I'm going to reach up for the bar, but I'm still keeping my shoulder blades back and down as I reach up for that barbell, right? So big thing here too is making sure that setup and that rack height is appropriate for you. If it's too high and you have to reach to get it off, you just lost that shoulder position that you've been trying to develop throughout the entire warm-up or setup procedure.
Right. I'm a little bit shorter at 5'8", so they typically have these bench press holes at the front of a rack or whatever, and we're set up at number 2 right now because it just allows us to get into a better position. I set up just a little bit differently than Matt, whereas I will make sure that I'm kind of lined up with the bar to start, and then my very next move is, Matt kind of alluded to the fact that my fingertips are really extended. I want to pull my shoulder blades back and down as if I'm trying to shove them into my back pocket. So I'm just kind of reaching towards the ceiling, shove my shoulder blades into my back pockets, and now I'm set up just like Matt was in a different style. So that's all I'm really thinking about all the time with the setup is shoulder blades in my back pockets, and then I'm ready to press.
That's good. So another thing we want to kind of talk about here is leg drive. We hear that thrown around a lot, but a lot of us don't really understand the concept of what that really means. So how I like to best use leg drive is when I get set up. So again, first thing I do is shoulder blades first before I even worry about the leg drive. But once I get the shoulder blades set, I use the rack. If you compete, some federations don't allow you to use the rack, but for most of you guys, probably not competing, so may as well make the most out of it. But once I get that set position, I'm going to almost come into a bridge position with my hips, and then I'm going to let my hips go back down just to where they're lightly touching the bench. So I want to have, it's almost like you're doing a glute bridge the entire time, but I'm pushing my hips back towards my shoulders. We want to try to get as much weight into the shoulders as we can. That's why we set them first, is shoulder blades set. Now I load those shoulders by pushing through the middle of my feet back into my shoulder position.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm a big proponent of the foot drive, so I set up pretty much the same way with foot drive. I like to think about as if I'm laying down on the bench, I'm trying to scoot my head towards that wall as I'm pressing out of the bottom position. Kind of a fun bonus fact here, which is completely contrary to everything we're saying, is that almost all of the world's best bench pressers, or I shouldn't say all, some of the greatest lifts out there in terms of bench press are performed by people that are, say, paralyzed from the waist down, don't really have the use of legs to drive through, and are still able to recruit and bench press an enormous amount of weight. But I would be really hard pressed to find anybody that bench presses with the use of their legs that does it better, say, without the use of their legs. So just use the legs.
Yeah, it allows for more stabilizing that trunk stability. So whenever I'm pushing through the legs, it allows me to be in a better stable trunk position so I can use my arms a little better. Is the leg drive itself helping us lift the weights? Not really, but it's probably putting us in a good position and that we can press better from.
Yeah, I just like the idea of like full body tension. If I can feel tension from my toes all the way up to my fingertips, I can almost maybe subconsciously feel like the tension that I'm creating in my toes and my feet are transferring up through my hands. Is that happening? Who knows? But as long as it feels that way, then I like that.
Yeah. The last thing I want to mention today, and we may have more to talk about, but is finding that right width position on the barbell. So whenever I go personally, I go a little bit wider. I have longer arms, but from what I found is it's more of like whatever feels the most comfortable for an individual. There's no optimal position for you, but it is good to practice pressing from different positions. So in one of our videos that's coming out, we talk about frequency, and we do recommend having at least 2 days of bench press, and sometimes having on that variation day going into a close grip position and practicing there, and also maybe even going into a wider grip position can be beneficial for you. We want to be strong from pressing in multiple different positions and not have to rely just on our competition or our max effort grip position.
Yeah, definitely. And also the variation, kind of allows you to target different areas of the chest and just kind of change things up a little bit. I think there's some research out there that shows like that close grip really is going to help to even develop the pecs, maybe more so than if we go out wider. Not to say one is better than the other. It's just if you're trying to like grow the actual size of your chest, a little bit more volume, plus changing it up and using that internal grip or that close grip should go a long way for accomplishing that goal. So
yeah, I agree.
I like to press from the same position as every other press. So whether I'm pressing overhead, bench pressing, dipping, or doing push-ups, I am keeping about the same width for all my like maximal efforts, right? On variation days, I'm gonna change things up. But if you look from one press to another, I am very much in a pressing archetype. So my elbow relationship to my body is always going to be kind of in a similar position, whether I'm dipping, benching, pressing overhead, or doing push-ups. And that's because that seems to be the most comfortable position. So that's where there's no right or wrong, but there probably is a right position for you, and that's going to be based off feel.
Yeah, like an optimal position, I could say. We talk about trying to optimize, and absolutely there will be positions that suit you best, but the only way you can really figure out what that position is by varying it up and trying different things, different training sessions. And it may take time. I know, like I've asked coaches, how long does it take you to find the right start position for this athlete? And they'll be like, it takes me 3 to 6 months to a year to figure out like really what is optimal, because you have to go through training cycles of that. Like if I try to change my technique and I've been doing the same technique for a long period of time, for me to go into closer grip or a wider grip, it's gonna take a full training cycle at least for me to see the effects of that new hand position.
Yeah, and all of these are kind of an evolution, right? So, I mean, you're watching the video, you're learning new things, you're gonna go implement them. Still, even to this day, like I'm constantly varying, I haven't varied my bench press technique in a little while because I'm really happy where I'm at right now, but squat is a great example. I mean, I just switched completely from a low bar, or from a high bar to a low bar, which we'll get into at a different time, but it's an evolution, right? It's constantly evolving, and you just gotta kind of keep tweaking with things and find what's right for you.
That's good. Let's talk about one more concept. What about the concept, how do you coach people with the elbow position? Do you coach that elbows tucked? I see a lot of newbies will typically have those elbows come way out to the side, which it does, by going out to the side, stress the pectoral muscles a little bit more. So if you're looking to build a bigger chest, that could be beneficial, but when it comes to lifting maximal load and being safe, what do you kind of look for?
Yeah, Again, I like to have kind of like a 45-degree angle, so I'm not up here at 90 degrees. I'm not in close to where it's like almost that close grip press like I was talking about, but I like to have a neutral kind of press. One of the best ways I like to find a width, like a proper width, seems to work out really well, is if you get down into a push-up position and basically you do like a hand release push-up. So you get down, don't even think about where your hands are, do a push-up. At the bottom of the push-up, I want you to lift your hands up off the ground and then push them back down, and kind of look at where the relationship of the elbow is after you do that kind of hand release type push-up. And that is probably gonna be a good starting position if you're wanting to tweak that hand width.
I agree completely. I stayed at 45 degrees, right where he was at, was where I like to coach it. And again, just like the hand width position, there's going to be some variation there, but the closer we can stay to that 45, the better. There's no reason to excessively tuck, and to excessively flare unless it's a variation day or you have a specific reason why you're choosing that.
Right, and there's also some biomechanical aspects of this. If we're out wide, when you look at the best bench pressers in the world, that bar is going to translate. So once I get out of the rack and I'm at the top, as I come down, that bar is actually going to translate from here down to like where my sternum is. And as I press back up, it's going to kind of come back up towards my collarbone. So if I'm out wide, I have a really hard time translating down to where that sternum might be. As opposed to if I'm 45 degree, it's very natural to kind of let that bar path have like an arced curve as opposed to a very linear curve.
Yeah, that's good. And that contact point also will vary too, but typically below the nipples is where we want to make that contact. If you're up higher, naturally your elbows are going to be in a higher position. So just by changing that bar position and contact position, your elbows should follow that.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah. All right, well that concludes our bench tutorial. Thank you guys for watching, and we look forward to providing more good content for you.